Super Bowl winner. Who's going to be in the game? Who's going to win it?
I'm going to go with the Bills and Niners are in the Super Bowl. That's my prediction. And you know what? Damn it. I've been scared. I've had cold feet. But after watching your bravery last night, I'm just going to say the damn Niners are going to win the thing, man. I believe it. I mean, there's really no reason for me not to think that the 49ers can win it. I think the only thing that, if we look at how, the Bengals did last year with a bad offensive line, and you look at how the Chiefs did against the Patriots with a bad offensive line. Yeah. If the 49ers don't win the Super Bowl, it's because the line doesn't go meet the expectations that we think they will, and or Trey Lance is not who we think he is, and or they end up having to put Jimmy in because of an injury or something, and Jimmy has not proven that he can win a big game or be a top-notch quarterback in the playoffs. So I'm going to go ahead and say the 49ers, but I also just gave you a couple reasons why it may not happen.
Yeah, I'm going Niners over Bills. But I'm not like I'm not like super confident. I mean, there's a few things about the Niners that give me pause. First of all is the offensive line. But the way I look at the offensive line, like the pass protection is an issue, but it was an issue last year. They had Tom Compton on the line. Tom Compton was not a good pass protector, but what the Niners have shown is that, or at least Kyle's shown, is he can get guys who run block for his scheme well. So if the Niners can run the ball well, they should be good. Really, it seems like beating the Niners, you have to have a really good run defense. And how many teams have that anymore? Contenders, not that many in my opinion, some. But even if you have a great run defense, that's not enough anymore because Trey will actually throw down the field, unlike the previous quarterback. So, and the Niners have like the best defense in the league. Everyone was so concerned about the offense in training camp when really the story was, oh my God, this defense is better than maybe any defense in the league. And I keep seeing people pick like Philly or Minnesota to go to the Super Bowl. Like the Niners are better than Philly. And everyone's picking Philly. The Niners are definitely better than Philly. They have a better defense than Philly and a better quarterback and better running backs. Although Miles Sanders is good for 11 carries a game. And then Minnesota, like we see what happens when the Niners play Minnesota. They shut down Dalvin Cook. They pressured Kirk Cousins. The game's over every time. I don't know. I mean, just feels like really my only question, more than the offensive line with this team, is the locker room. Do they have Trey's back? Because I don't even know if they have it yet, or if he has it fully. If he has a little bit of adversity to start the season, do they bail? I'm talking captains, George Kittle, Eric Armstead, vets that are like they consider Jimmy Garoppolo a brother to them, a friend. Do they have Trey's back the way they have Jimmy's back? Because if the leadership council pulls the plug on Trey after a month, then this team's not going to win the Super Bowl. So they need to give Trey a chance because, and I don't think he's going to struggle early on, frankly, but I don't think he will. But if that happens, how is his team going to respond?
Yeah, and that's a big concern for me. Obviously, I talked to my friend who talked to me about the 49ers. He works for the organization. So, talking about his comments saying that the 49ers were hesitant, it doesn't mean that the franchise as a whole is hesitant about Trey Lance. It's more about the guys you're talking about.
Yeah.
The guys that have been battling with Jimmy for the last 5 years, who has seen what Jimmy can do. He can take them, far in the postseason. They haven't been able to win one, but that's their friend.
Plus they have personal relationships with Jimmy.
Right.
They love Jimmy.
Yeah. You got your good friend over here who's brought you to the Super Bowl, brought you to the NFC Championship, or brought you, to the NFC Championship. From their perspective, that's their good friend that they've been battling with, and now they got this new rookie, 22-year-old stepping in. That's where my friend who told me what he told me, that's where that came from, is those guys. And so that's a big concern that you bring up, the locker room. That's a big concern. Another concern for me, Grant, is although I think the defense is amazing, probably the best in the league. I really think so. And I also think the run game has the potential to be the best in the league. It seems that every year at some point in the postseason, you need a quarterback to just be the guy at some point, maybe in the fourth quarter. And I don't know if Trey Lance is or not. We know Jimmy's not. I mean, obviously from the past, we know he's not, but it's Trey. That's the
Let me
question.
just counter real quick.
Okay.
When the Seahawks won the Super Bowl in 2013, 14, whatever, Russell Wilson was never the guy. Like, he was really good, but it was never about him. I mean, he was part of it. It was the defense. It was Marshawn. It was him. And I feel like if Trey, I mean, he doesn't necessarily need to be a guy who drops back 40 times this year. But if he gives you a few big plays, if he can be like a young Russell Wilson, which is that's a high bar. He was always excellent, but he wasn't the guy. The way I think of like Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow being the guy, where like, they're going to drop back 50 times, take a bunch of sacks. It's all about them. Like, doesn't have to be that with Lance. He just has to be a playmaker when called upon. Yeah.
What I mean is being the guy is probably not that. What I don't mean he has to pass a ton of games, but what I mean is when the moment arrives, is he clutch?
Don't overthrow Emmanuel Sanders by 10 yards.
Right.
Don't overthrow Michael Crabtree 3 times in a row in the same route.
Right.
Don't throw the ball to Richard Sherman. Yeah, I got you.
Exactly. Is he clutch in the moment, in the postseason? Yeah. And maybe I'm crazy, but I think he is. I think he's going to be. But that's going to be
how a 22-year-old first-year starter is going to react if and when he gets to the playoffs. It's like Lamar Jackson didn't do so great his first time in the playoffs. So I guess that's probably why a lot of people aren't picking the Niners to win the Super Bowl. But it's like, okay, you're going to pick Philly? You're going to pick, or just to represent the NFC, you're going to pick who? Like, what is the team? The Rams? The Niners always play the Rams well. The only time the Niners lost to the Rams, it was by like 3 points, and they had the lead. So the Bucs aren't as good as they used to be. I don't know. I think it's pretty clear. Also the schedule too. The schedule's rough. Not having Jimmy Ward, not great, but really, you have really good corners. So it's just who's going to cover the tight ends. As long as you have Jimmy Ward when you play Travis Kelce and Darren Waller, you'll be all right. Who's the tight end that's going to beat you? Cole Kmet? No. I'm sorry.
Yeah. One thing I watched Peyton Manning the other day. I think it was on Colin Cowherd or something. And he was talking about Eli. Mm-hmm. And Eli said that the 6 games that he actually got to play were 10 times more valuable than the 10 when he sat behind Kurt Warner. And so I think something that's going to work in Trey's favor, and I hope fans understand, is that Trey Lance is going to be a different quarterback by the end of this season than he is in the beginning. And maybe he'll come out firing on all cylinders. But I really think as the season goes on, by the end of the year, when it's most important, the postseason and the playoffs, and hopefully the Super Bowl, Trey Lance will have learned a ton, and he'll be a different quarterback than we see on Sunday versus the Bears.
Before we wrap it up, I watched that with Peyton Manning too. It's so funny how people just talk about their own experiences. Peyton said, it was really good for him to play. He needed to go 3-13 so he could go 13-3 the next year. Fine, that worked for him. I was thinking, what about Tom Brady? If Tom Brady were sitting there, he'd be like, I didn't play my first year, and that was probably good because the next year I won the Super Bowl as a first-year starter. So it's like anyone can validate their own experiences. Like, it worked for Brady. I don't know if you remember, but he sat his first year, and then he came in, and he only threw for like 2,800 yards, but he went 11-3, won the Super Bowl. So maybe Lance could do that.
Yeah, one thing I'm really realizing over the last couple of years is it doesn't matter what school you went to. It doesn't matter whether you sit or start. What really matters is just, are you that guy? Like, are you him? It doesn't matter if you're the first round draft pick or the 6th, like Tom Brady. Yeah. It's your talent. It's who you are. If you're the guy, you're the guy, regardless of what situation or how you get there.
Right. I mean, we're learning that with a guy like Sam Darnold, right? A million excuses. Why don't you put him on a new team? Nope, still sucks. Hey, guess what? He still sucks. Maybe it's because he sucks.
Right. I mean, people are talking about, Lance comes from a small school. You can look, there's over 51 players from small schools that you never heard of that are in the Hall of Fame. Then you guys got like Jamarcus Russell goes to LSU and is a complete bust. It doesn't matter what school you went to. It matters who you are. Are you talented? Is this you?
And people talk about his reps. Oh, he hasn't played that much. Like, okay, well, talent's talent. If he has it, he has it. Like, it's imagine like scouting a 19-year-old Muhammad Ali, and he has all this talent, and you're like, yeah, but he hasn't boxed that much. He's not going to be good. Like, what do you can give him experience? Like, that's the one thing. Right. He has all this stuff you can't teach. Like, that's Trey. Why would you? So you want someone? Okay, Brock Purdy. I like Brock Purdy. Mm-hmm. Has the experience, the mechanics, not the talent. You know, he could do everything right and still never be better than a backup quarterback. Trey Lance doing a lot of things wrong could be one of the better starting quarterbacks in the league right now.
Yeah.
And I think he will be. So it's just, that's the way it is.
And I was taking, doing my thing on Twitter yesterday. A lot of guys, going at Trey Lance because he went to North Dakota State. So think about this. Steph Curry, right, went to Davidson, a very small D1 school. So based on their argument, Warriors should not have drafted Steph Curry because he went to a small school. It's just stupid. It's like you're either great or you're not,
Yeah. And again, I don't feel like I'm projecting. If the Niners offense sucked with Trey Lance last year, the run game wasn't good, I'd be like, I don't see it. But no, 6.4 yards per play, 5 yards per carry. Meanwhile, it was 4.2 with Jimmy. It's all there. Frankly, they would have won the Super Bowl last year if Trey Lance had just kept playing after the Houston game. Jimmy was hurt. The run game was DOA in the playoffs. It wouldn't have been. There would have been no scouting. People wouldn't have known how to defend the Niners run game. They would have won. They would have won last year. They're going to win this year as long as they don't cannibalize themselves in the locker room. Pretty much. That's the way I look at it.
And you brought up, I think it was on Twitter the other day, about how, and on your show, if you compare the rushing numbers with Trey Lance versus when Jimmy Garoppolo was in, it was like 0.8 more.
Yes.
Right. And I did the math. That means the running backs would have ran for 425 yards more per season. That is humongous. And then not only that, Trey Lance is a runner himself. So that's probably like close to 1,000 yards more rushing with Trey Lance in as a quarterback. And
that's what I'm saying. They're going to run for 3,000 yards, set a franchise record, now 17 games. But still, they're going to set a franchise record, have one of the best defenses in franchise history, and a playmaker at quarterback who makes some mistakes, but isn't in a position where he has to do, risky things. He's going to have a defense and a run game. He has the quarterback's two best friends. He has them. Not to mention playmakers everywhere and a really sophisticated game plan every week. It seems like, I don't know, how can you miss? But maybe it's Jim Druckenmiller. I don't know. David DeFore says, Ryan, I've enjoyed your thoughtful perspective. I haven't. Be less thoughtful. What are you doing? Matthew says, keep an eye on the head coach in Minnesota if they dethrone Green Bay. Keep an eye on him?
I think for coach of the year.
Oh, I feel you. Yeah, I can see that too. I can see that too. I actually think he's going to do a really good job, and that team's going to win the division.
Or if the Lions end up being decent, he already has the love from the
people like that guy.
Yeah, he's like Hulk Hogan.